Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the colony ship Endeavour, watching the stars of the Kepler 442 system through the main viewport. His crew had been exploring this distant corner of space for 3 months, searching for suitable worlds where humans could build new homes. The ship hummed quietly around him as the night shift went about their duties. Jake had been commanding deep space missions for 12 years, but something about tonight felt different. The communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, looked up from her station with a puzzled expression. She adjusted her headset and frowned at the readings on her screen. The signal she was receiving was unlike anything in their databases. It was powerful, coming from somewhere far beyond their current position, and it was clearly artificial. Amy had served on frontier vessels for 8 years and had never encountered anything like this. Transmission.Jake walked over to Amy's station and leaned down to look at her displays. The signal pattern was complex and seemed to contain multiple layers of information. It was definitely not from any human source he recognized. The closest human settlement was New Eden, 47 light-years away, and their communications used completely different frequencies and encoding methods. Amy worked quickly to decode the incoming transmission. Her fingers moved across the control panel as she ran the signal through various translation protocols. The computer systems aboard Endeavour were equipped with theoretical frameworks for communicating with non-human intelligence, though no one had ever expected to use them. Scientists back on Earth had spent decades developing these protocols, but they had always been considered purely academic exercises. The main screen on the bridge flickered and then displayed an image that made everyone present stop what they were doing. A reptilian face appeared, with scales that seemed to shift color in the artificial lighting. The creature's eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils that contracted as they focused on something off-camera. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth, and when it spoke, its voice was deep and carried an unmistakable tone of authority. Jake activated the ship's internal communications system and called all senior officers to the bridge immediately. Within minutes, the small command center was filled with his most trusted crew members. Dr. Rebecca Stone, the ship's xenobiology specialist, stared at the screen with wide eyes. Chief Engineer Carlos Rodriguez crossed his arms and studied the alien with the practical gaze of someone trying to understand new technology. Security Chief Hannah Brooks kept her hand near her sidearm, though she knew such weapons would be useless against whatever civilization could transmit across interstellar distances. The reptilian being began to speak, and the ship's computer systems worked to translate its words into English. The translation was not perfect, but the meaning was clear enough to send chills through everyone listening. The creature introduced itself as Speaker Thekska of the Vorthek Empire, representing something called the Galactic Council of Overlords. It spoke with the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Speaker Thekska explained that the Council had been monitoring human expansion across the galaxy for many years. They had watched as humans established colonies on dozens of worlds and developed what the aliens considered to be basic space travel technology. The Council consisted of 12 ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They viewed newer species like humanity as subjects to be managed and exploited for the benefit of their more advanced overlords. The message continued with what could only be described as a demand for tribute. The Council required immediate payment from all human settlements and colonies. They wanted 50% of all industrial production, including rare metals that were essential for advanced technology. They also demanded detailed blueprints of every piece of human technology, from simple tools to the most sophisticated starship engines. Most disturbing of all, they required 10,000 humans to be delivered to their research facilities for what they called biological studies. Jake felt his jaw clench as he listened to these demands. The alien spoke as if humans were livestock to be managed, rather than intelligent beings with rights and dignity. The casual way Vexka discussed taking human lives for experiments made. Jake's hands formed fists at his sides. His crew exchanged grim looks as they realized the implications of what they were hearing. The ultimatum came with a deadline of 30 Earth Standard Days. If humanity failed to comply with these demands, the Council would implement what they called pacification protocols. Speaker Vexka explained this meant the complete orbital bombardment of all human worlds. They would start with the most populated colonies as examples to encourage the others to surrender quickly. The aliens seemed to take pleasure in describing how their weapons could turn entire continents into molten glass within hours. What made the message even more insulting was the casual dismissal of human capabilities. Vexka referred to humans as primitives who have barely achieved basic faster-than-light travel. He spoke as if humanity's technology was so inferior that resistance would be both futile and amusing. The Council clearly expected immediate and complete submission from what they considered to be a barely civilized species. Amy worked to trace the signal's origin point while the message continued. Her readings showed that the transmission was being broadcast simultaneously to every known human settlement across 37 star systems. This was not a private communication to the Endeavor, but a galaxy-wide announcement intended for all of humanity. The Council was making their demands known to every human colony, research station, and military outpost at the same time. Dr. Stone began taking detailed notes on the aliens' physiology and behavior patterns. Even in this moment of crisis, her scientific training compelled her to gather as much information as possible about this first contact with non-human intelligence. She observed that Vexka's scales seemed to change color slightly when he discussed violence, suggesting some form of emotional or physiological response to the topic of warfare. The transmission ended with coordinates for delivery of the demanded tribute and a repetition of the 30-day deadline. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. Jake looked around at his officers and saw the same mixture of anger and determination in their faces that he felt burning in his own chest. These aliens had made a serious mistake if they thought humans would simply roll over and accept slavery without a fight. Jake ordered Amy to immediately transmit a copy of the message to Earth Command and all other human military installations. This information needed to reach every human leader as quickly as possible. The 30-day countdown had already begun, and humanity would need every available moment to decide how to respond to this unprecedented threat to their freedom and survival. High Chancellor Vexmore stood in the center of the Council Mothership's command chamber, his massive form casting shadows across the crystalline floor. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering, with walls made from living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Representatives from 12 different species sat in a circle around him, each occupying specially designed seats that accommodated their unique physiologies. The air recycling systems worked constantly to maintain the precise atmospheric mixture that each species required to survive in the shared space. The Zenithari representative floated in a containment field filled with luminous gas, its crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. Core Mind Axiom 7 had been calculating probabilities since the human ultimatum was transmitted 24 hours ago. Its thoughts moved at speeds far beyond biological comprehension, processing thousands of possible scenarios and outcomes. The mathematical certainty of human submission filled its consciousness with satisfaction. Vex-More activated the chamber's central display system, and holographic images of human colonies appeared floating above the assembled representatives. Each world was shown in perfect detail, with population centers, industrial facilities, and defensive installations marked in different colors. The display had been compiled over decades of careful observation, using stealth probes and intercepted communications to build a complete picture of human expansion across the galaxy. The reptilian chancellor pointed to the agricultural world of New Montana, where 2.3 million humans lived in scattered farming communities. The planet's defenses consisted of a small orbital station and a handful of patrol ships that could barely qualify as military vessels. Vex Moore had already decided that New Montana would serve as the example to encourage swift surrender from the other human colonies. The destruction of one undefended world would demonstrate the Council's power while minimizing their own resource expenditure. Commander Zeph Kuhl of the Insectoid Hive Fleet chittered with amusement as he studied the human military capabilities. His compound eyes could process multiple data streams simultaneously, allowing him to analyze dozens of human ships and weapon systems at once. Every piece of human technology appeared to be centuries behind what the Council considered modern warfare standards. Their weapons used simple kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams that could barely penetrate standard Council shielding. The gaseous ethereal representative, known only as the Whisper, communicated through vibrations in the chamber's atmosphere. Its thoughts moved like wind through the minds of the other Council members, sharing memories of previous conquest campaigns. The ethereals had been among the first species to submit to Council authority 3,000 years ago, and they took pride in their role as advisors on subjugation tactics. The Whisper recalled how their own resistance had lasted less than one standard day once. Council ships appeared in their home system. Admiral Susan Parker of Human Military Intelligence sat in her office on Mars, surrounded by banks of quantum computers that processed intercepted alien communications around the clock. Her team had been monitoring Council transmissions for months, ever since their deep space listening posts detected unusual energy signatures from previously empty regions of space. Susan had spent 15 years in military intelligence, and her instincts told her that the Council's confidence was based on incomplete information about human capabilities. The intercepted communications revealed that the Council members were sharing recordings of their previous conquest campaigns with obvious pride. The mechanical synthetics had negotiated surrender terms within hours of first contact, calculating that resistance would result in the complete destruction of their civilization. The plant-based Verdians had submitted after losing just 2 colony worlds, their collective consciousness unable to bear the trauma of watching their offspring burn in orbital bombardment. Susan's translation team worked frantically to decode more alien communications, searching for any information that might give humanity an advantage in the coming conflict. The Council's battle plans were surprisingly straightforward, relying on overwhelming technological superiority rather than complex strategy. They intended to position their fleets around major human population centers and demand surrender through displays of destructive power. President John Hamilton convened an emergency session of the Human Colonial Assembly in the secure chambers beneath Geneva. Representatives from 37 worlds attended through quantum encrypted communication links, their holographic forms appearing around the circular conference table. The chamber's walls displayed star maps showing every human settlement and hive. The projected positions of Council fleets based on Susan's intelligence reports. Governor Lisa Chun of the New Texas colony spoke first, her voice tight with controlled anger. Her world was home to 3 million people, including many families who had traveled for generations to reach their new home among the stars. The thought of surrendering to alien overlords who viewed humans as experimental subjects filled her with rage. She demanded to know what military resources were available to defend the colonies. Mark Johnson from the Europa Mining Consortium raised concerns about the Council's demand for rare earth metals. His people had spent decades extracting these materials from asteroid belts and planetary cores, building the foundation of human space industry. Surrendering 50% of their production would cripple humanity's ability to maintain their existing colonies, let alone expand to new worlds. Dr. Alex Chun, humanity's chief xenobiologist, presented his analysis of the alien transmission to the assembled leaders. He had studied every frame of the recording, noting subtle details about the speaker's physiology and behavior patterns. The Vorthik representative had shown clear signs of what humans would recognize as contempt, amusement when discussing human military capabilities. This suggested that the Council genuinely believed humans posed no significant threat to their forces. The discussion continued for hours as representatives debated possible responses to the alien ultimatum. Some colonies advocated attempting to negotiate better terms, arguing that any deal would be preferable to the complete destruction of human civilization. Others proposed abandoning the outer colonies and consolidating defenses around Earth and the core worlds. A few radical voices suggested scattering into deep space, abandoning fixed settlements in favor of nomadic fleets that could hide among the stars. Core Mind, Axiom 7 completed its calculations and announced the results to the Council chamber. Based on observed human technology and military organization, resistance would last exactly 4.7 standard time units before complete surrender. The probability matrices showed a 97.3% chance of total human submission within one local week of the first demonstration attack. The remaining 2.7% margin of error accounted for possible delays caused by communication difficulties between distant human colonies. The Council members approved the final battle plans with unanimous consent. Their fleets would move into position around human worlds during the final week of the ultimatum period. New Montana would be destroyed precisely at the deadline to demonstrate Council resolve. The other human colonies would then have 24 hours to transmit their surrender before additional examples were made of their populations. Director Kate Williams walked through the underground corridors of the Human Strategic Defense Initiative headquarters, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls that stretched deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. The facility had been built in secret over the past 50 years, funded through classified budgets that most government officials never knew existed. Kate had overseen the project for the last 15 years, watching as humanity prepared for a day they all hoped would never come. The elevator descended for nearly 2 minutes before reaching the main operations center. The doors opened to reveal a vast chamber filled with holographic displays, quantum computers, and personnel from every branch of human military and scientific research. Admiral Greg Collins stood at the central command station, studying tactical displays that showed the true extent of human military capabilities across the galaxy. Kate approached the main briefing area where President Hamilton and the Colonial Assembly representatives waded through secure quantum links. The holographic forms of governors, military commanders, and scientists from 37 worlds filled the chamber. Each face showed the strain of the past week as they struggled to find a response to the Council's ultimatum. Kate carried with her a data pad containing information that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's chances for survival. She activated the main display system and began to reveal secrets that had been hidden from most of humanity for half a century. The seemingly innocent colony ships that had carried millions of humans to distant worlds were not the simple transport vessels they appeared to be. Each ship contained hidden weapon systems that could be activated by remote command. The fusion reactors that powered the ships could be reconfigured to generate energy beams capable of cutting through the strongest known materials. Admiral Collins stepped forward to explain Project Thunderbolt, pointing to a star map that showed the positions of over 300 stealth vessels throughout Council territory. These ships had been operating under deep cover for decades, disguised as merchant vessels, research platforms, and civilian transports. Their crews lived double lives, maintaining their cover identities while gathering intelligence on every Major Council installation and military facility. The stealth ships were equipped with advanced sensor arrays that could monitor alien communications from within their own star systems. They had mapped the locations of Council command centers, weapons manufacturing facilities, and the homeworlds of each member species. Every major trade route, supply depot, and military base was cataloged in human databases that grew more complete with each passing year. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, head of Advanced Weapons Research, began her presentation on humanity's true technological capabilities. The weapons she described bore no resemblance to the primitive kinetic guns and energy beams that the Council had observed in their surveillance of human colonies. Quantum cascade weapons could manipulate the fundamental forces that held matter together, causing enemy ships to simply disintegrate at the molecular level. Maria explained how these weapons worked by creating controlled tiers in spacetime itself. The energy released could age metal structures by thousands of years in seconds, turning the strongest armor into rust and dust. Gravitational manipulation devices could create artificial black holes that would crush enemy vessels or redirect them harmlessly into deep space. The weapons existed in a realm of physics that the Council scientists had never explored. Colonel Tony Adams revealed another layer of humanity's hidden preparations. The cargo ships that had been traveling Council trade routes for years were actually deployment vessels for automated defense platforms. These platforms had been disguised as asteroids and scattered throughout strategic locations across Council space. Each platform contained enough firepower to disable capital ships and was equipped with quantum communication systems that allowed instant coordination across galactic distances. The platforms could remain dormant for decades, powered by zero-point energy collectors that drew power directly from the vacuum of space. Their weapon systems were designed to activate simultaneously across hundreds of star systems, creating a coordinated attack that would catch Council forces completely off guard. The aliens would find themselves under fire from weapons they had never detected in systems they considered completely secure. Kate showed the assembled leaders detailed schematics of human colonies that revealed their true nature. The underground installations beneath each settlement contained manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, and military command centers connected by quantum tunnel networks. These tunnels allowed instant communication and transportation between colonies, separated by hundreds of light years. The mining operations that provided raw materials for human industry had been producing far more than the basic metals and fuels that appeared in official reports. Exotic matter factories hidden beneath asteroid mining stations created materials that existed at the boundaries of known physics. These substances could be used to build weapons and defensive systems that operated according to principles the Council had never encountered. President Hamilton studied the information with growing amazement and asked about humanity's faster-than-light travel capabilities. Admiral Collins explained that human ships used quantum anchor technology that was fundamentally different from the Council's hyperspace drives. While alien ships moved through alternate dimensions to cross interstellar distances, human vessels could instantly teleport between prepared anchor points scattered throughout the galaxy. The quantum anchor network had been built in secret over decades, with anchor points disguised as communication relays, research stations, and navigation beacons. The network allowed human forces to appear anywhere in Council space within minutes of receiving orders. A fleet defending Earth could engage Council forces attacking colonies on the far side of the galaxy without any travel time whatsoever. Dr. Stone presented her analysis of Council technology based on decades of covert observation. The aliens relied heavily on energy shields and armor that could deflect or absorb conventional weapons. However, their defenses were designed to counter threats they understood. Quantum weapons that attacked matter at the subatomic level would pass through their shields as if they did not exist. The Council's ships were built for battles against enemies using similar technology and tactics. Their weapons were optimized for penetrating energy shields and conventional armor. Their sensors were designed to detect known forms of propulsion and energy generation. Human technology operated on principles so different that Council forces would be effectively blind to the true nature of the threat they faced. Kate concluded the briefing by revealing the scope of human intelligence gathering operations. Every major Council facility had been infiltrated by human agents, using advanced holographic disguises and genetic modification techniques. These agents had access to alien computer networks, military communications, and strategic planning sessions. Humanity knew more about Council capabilities and intentions than the Council members knew about each other. The 37 world leaders sat in stunned silence as they absorbed the implications of what they had learned. Humanity was not the primitive species the Council believed them to be. They were a civilization that had spent 50 years preparing for galactic warfare while maintaining the illusion of technological inferiority. The question now was whether they were ready to reveal their true nature to the galaxy. The 30-day deadline arrived with the precision of an atomic clock counting down to zero. Across Council space, massive alien fleets moved into position around human colonies like predators surrounding helpless prey. High Chancellor Vex Moore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching the agricultural world of New Montana rotate slowly beneath his guns. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, with green continents and blue oceans that reminded him of worlds his people had conquered centuries ago. Admiral Parker sat in the command center of Earth's Strategic Defense Network, her fingers hovering over controls that would change the course of galactic history. Banks of quantum computers around her processed real-time intelligence from human agents embedded throughout Council territory. Every alien ship movement, every communication between Council commanders, and every preparation for the coming demonstration of power was being monitored and recorded on the surface of New Montana. Governor Pete Morrison watched the alien fleet through the windows of his office in the capital city of New Helena. The ships were clearly visible as bright dots against the star field, their hulls reflecting sunlight like deadly jewels. Pete had evacuated most of the civilian population to underground shelters, but he remained at his post with a skeleton crew of volunteers who refused to abandon their world. Core Mind Axiom 7 aboard the Council mothership completed final calculations for the demonstration attack. The mathematical models showed that destroying New Montana would require exactly 4.7 terajoules of directed energy applied to key population centers and infrastructure nodes. The psychological impact on remaining human colonies was calculated to be sufficient for immediate surrender. The crystalline being's consciousness hummed with satisfaction at the elegant simplicity of the solution. Captain Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of what the Council believed was a simple human research vessel named Liberty. In reality, the ship was the command platform for humanity's most advanced weapon systems, disguised behind holographic projectors and false energy signatures. Her crew of 200 included some of humanity's most skilled warriors and scientists, all waiting for the signal that would begin the most important battle in human history. The Council's deadline expired at exactly 1200 hours Universal Standard Time. High Chancellor Vex Moore opened a communication channel to all human colonies, expecting to receive surrender transmissions or desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, every human settlement, ship, and installation began broadcasting the same message, simultaneously across all frequencies and in every known alien language. The word was simple, direct, and unmistakable in its meaning. It came from the erect, farming colonies of the Outer Rim, the mining stations of the asteroid belts, the research facilities orbiting distant stars, and the heavily populated worlds of the inner systems. From the flagship of Earth's defense fleet to the smallest cargo, Hauler in deep space, humanity spoke with one voice that echoed across the galaxy. The word was no. For exactly 60 seconds, this single word repeated from every human transmitter in known space. It was broadcast in Vorthik, Zenithari, Ethereal, and the languages of all 12 council species. The transmission was so perfectly synchronized that it seemed to come from a single massive entity speaking with the voice of an entire civilization. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. High Chancellor Vexmore stared at his communication displays in confusion that quickly turned to anger. This was not the response his calculations had predicted. Primitive species were supposed to cower before superior technology and beg for mercy when faced with extinction. They were not supposed to defy the council with such casual arrogance. He began to issue orders for the immediate bombardment of New Montana. When his sensor operators reported something impossible, energy signatures were appearing throughout council space that matched no known technology in their databases. Objects that had been cataloged as asteroids, debris fields, and natural phenomena suddenly revealed themselves to be artificial constructs of enormous power. Stealth fields that had hidden human ships for decades began dropping, revealing a fleet that dwarfed anything the Council had imagined possible. Admiral Collins activated Operation Human Shield from his command post on Mars. The signal went out through quantum tunnels to every human installation across the galaxy. Hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves around major Council worlds. Colony defense systems that had appeared. Primitives suddenly reconfigured into artillery arrays that could crack the crust of planets. Mining ships shed their disguises to become battleships that moved through space. Like dark angels of destruction, the seemingly innocent human technology proved to be deliberately misleading in every aspect. Human ships did not simply move faster than Council vessels could track. They phase-shifted directly through energy shields, as if the barriers did not exist. Their weapons did not merely penetrate Council armor. They reached into the atomic structure of enemy hulls and transformed solid metal into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Commander Jake Martinez, now aboard the true flagship of humanity's fleet, watched as the balance of power shifted in real time. The vessel he commanded bore no resemblance to the colony ship Endeavor. The Defiance was a dimensional dreadnought that existed partially outside normal spacetime, allowing it to strike at targets across multiple star systems simultaneously, while remaining immune to conventional weapons. Captain Brooks opened a communication channel to the Council mothership, her image appearing on High Chancellor Vexmore's main screen with crystal clarity. Behind her, the Bridge of the Liberty revealed itself to be a command center filled with technology that made Council systems look primitive by comparison. Officers worked at stations that controlled weapons capable of reshaping the fundamental forces of physics. Her words were calm and measured, delivered with the confidence of someone who held absolute advantage in a conflict that had already been decided. She addressed the alien leader directly, speaking in perfect Vorthik, while translation systems carried her words to every member of the Council. The message was simple and devastating in its implications. She told them that they had asked for tribute and received humanity's answer. She explained that they had threatened human worlds and would now face the consequences of that decision. She informed them that they had called humans primitive and were about to learn what primitives could accomplish when their survival was threatened. The demonstration they had planned for New Montana would instead be delivered to their own worlds. Within minutes, Council fleets found themselves surrounded and outgunned in their own territory. Ancient strongholds that had never seen battle suddenly had human ships in orbit with weapons trained on population centers. The most protected installations in Council space discovered that their defenses had been compromised by technology they could not understand or counter. The hunters had become the hunted in the span of a single hour. 6 hours after humanity's response echoed across the galaxy, the Galactic Council of Overlords ceased to exist as a military force. High Chancellor Vexmore floated in the ruins of his flagship's bridge, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows on the twisted metal around him. The Dominion's Fist had been the most powerful warship in Council space, protected by shields that could deflect the energy of a small star. Now it drifted powerless through space, its hull aged to brittle rust by weapons that attacked the very bonds holding its atoms together. The Vorthik, Homeworld's orbital defense grid, lay in ruins around the planet, like a broken necklace of metal and ceramic. Structures that had taken millennia to build crumbled to dust as quantum cascade. Weapons aged them thousands of years in mere seconds. The proud towers that had housed the Council's central command became twisted, monuments to the arrogance of those who had underestimated humanity's resolve and capability. Admiral Parker watched the tactical displays from Earth's command center as reports flowed in from across Council territory. The crystalline cities of the Zenithari Collective cracked and shattered under gravitational manipulation devices that created localized distortions in spacetime. Ancient fortress worlds that had never seen combat found themselves defenseless against human ships that appeared without warning and struck with weapons beyond alien comprehension. Core Mind. Axiom 7 experienced something its species had never known before: complete computational failure. Every calculation and probability matrix had been wrong. The mathematical certainty of human submission had been replaced by the impossible reality of total Council defeat. The crystalline being's consciousness fragmented as it tried to process data that contradicted everything it understood about warfare and technology. Commander Zeph Kuhl of the Hive Fleet transmitted desperate surrender signals from his crippled command ship. The insectoid warrior had participated in dozens of conquest campaigns across thousands of years, but he had never faced an enemy that could phase shift through solid matter and strike from inside their own defensive perimeters. His compound eyes watched helplessly as human vessels materialized within his formation and disabled his ships without firing a single conventional weapon. President Hamilton stood in the emergency session chamber beneath Geneva, watching holographic displays that showed the end of Council military power across the galaxy. The alien fleets that had surrounded human colonies were either destroyed or surrendering. The mighty armadas that had enforced Council rule for millennia were reduced to scrap metal floating in the void between stars. Governor Pete Morrison emerged from the underground shelters of New Montana to see Council ships falling from orbit like burning meteors. The alien fleet that had come to make an example of his world was being systematically dismantled by human forces that seemed to appear from empty space. The agricultural planet that had been chosen as a demonstration of Council power became, instead, a symbol of humanity's refusal to submit to tyranny. Dr. Alex Chun worked frantically in his laboratory, analyzing recordings of alien surrender transmissions that poured in from across the galaxy. The xenobiologist had spent years studying Council psychology and behavior patterns. He could see the complete breakdown of their command structure as species that had ruled for thousands of years suddenly found themselves at the mercy of beings they had considered primitive animals. The ethereal representative known as the Whisper tried to communicate with human forces through modulated atmospheric vibrations, but the quantum weapons had disrupted its ability to maintain coherent thought patterns. The gaseous being that had advised the Council on conquest tactics now drifted as scattered particles through the void, its consciousness fragmented beyond repair. Captain Brooks received surrender requests from 17 different Council fleets. Within the first 4 hours of combat, each alien commander offered complete submission in exchange for the safety of their crews and home worlds. The woman who had commanded what appeared to be a simple research vessel now held the fate of civilizations that had dominated the galaxy since before humanity learned to use fire. High Chancellor Vex Moore activated his personal communicator with trembling claws and requested immediate parley with human forces. The same being who had delivered ultimatums and threats just hours before now begged for mercy from the species he had planned to enslave. His flagship's life support systems were failing, and he knew that his survival depended entirely on human willingness to show compassion to a defeated enemy. President Hamilton's response was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy, reaching billions of beings who had lived under council rule for generations beyond counting. His words were translated into thousands of languages and transmitted across interstellar distances by quantum communication arrays that had been hidden throughout alien space for decades. The president announced the dissolution of the Galactic Council of Overlords and the establishment of new principles for interstellar relations. Each member species would govern its own territory without interference from others. The tribute system that had drained resources from younger civilizations was permanently abolished. Any species that threatened another would face immediate intervention by human forces that would enforce galactic peace through overwhelming technological superiority. Dr. Maria Rodriguez began implementing humanitarian aid programs for former Council territories. The quantum cascade weapons that had proven so devastating in combat were reconfigured to accelerate healing and reconstruction on war-damaged worlds. Gravitational manipulation devices helped rebuild shattered cities by moving massive amounts of material with precision that no conventional construction method could match. Commander Jake Martinez, now bearing the title of Grand Admiral of the Human Space Navy, oversaw the conversion of Council weapons factories into industrial facilities. For peaceful purposes, the massive installations that had produced instruments of oppression were transformed into manufacturing centers for medical equipment, agricultural technology, and educational materials that would be distributed freely to any world that requested assistance. In research facilities across human space, alien students began arriving to study at universities that offered knowledge freely to all species. The beings who had once paid tribute to their overlords discovered that the species they had considered primitive possessed scientific understanding that surpassed anything in Council databases. The secrets of quantum physics, dimensional engineering, and space-time manipulation were shared openly with any civilization willing to use them for peaceful purposes. The greatest victory was not the defeat of the Council's military forces, but the transformation of galactic civilization itself. Libraries on 1,000 worlds recorded the new motto that defined interstellar relations in the post-Council era. The inscription reminded all species of the lesson humanity had taught through their response to demands for tribute. The galaxy had learned that when faced with tyranny, when confronted by those who would enslave the free, when threatened by powers that considered themselves superior to all others, there was only one appropriate response. That response had changed everything, toppling ancient empires and freeing countless civilizations from millennia of oppression. The word that had echoed across the stars would be remembered forever as the moment when humanity refused to kneel and chose instead to stand as guardians of freedom for all who sought to live in peace among the infinite stars above.